Think about the last time you were bored. Maybe you were waiting, in a line, in a car, in a meeting that had no reason to exist. You had everything you needed. You weren't hungry, you weren't cold, you weren't in danger, and yet something inside you was screaming. Most people assume boredom is just what happens when there's nothing to do. A gap, a pause, an absence of things. But that's not quite right, because animals have gaps. Animals have pauses. A dog lying in the sun isn't doing anything. A cat staring at a wall has nothing to do. But they're not bored. You are. And the reason why changes everything we think we know about what it means to be human. Let's start with what boredom actually is, because scientists spent decades arguing about this. Not whether it existed, clearly it does, but what exactly was happening inside a brain when it did. In 2012, psychologist John Eastwood at York University published what became one of the most cited definitions in boredom research. He argued that boredom is not an absence of stimulation. It's a failure to engage with available stimulation. Read that again. Not nothing to do. Unable to connect with what's there. Eastwood's team ran a series of experiments where participants were given tasks, some interesting, some deliberately dull, and monitored their attention throughout. What they found was that boredom wasn't about the task. It was about attention itself. Specifically, attention that wants to attach to something, but can't find anything that holds it. Your brain isn't idle when you're bored. It's searching, frantically, and finding nothing worth landing on. But that raises an obvious question. Why would a brain do that? Why would any brain evolve to need constant engagement just to function? The answer is older than you think. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan has spent his career studying a system in the brain he calls the wanting system. It's driven by dopamine, not the reward chemical. That's a myth. The anticipation chemical. Dopamine doesn't fire when you get something. It fires when your brain expects something is coming. This system evolved for one purpose: to keep animals moving, seeking, hunting, exploring. As long as the wanting system is active, an animal is engaged with the world, looking for food, for mates, for threats. In most animals, this system quiets when there's nothing to pursue. The leopard rests between hunts. It doesn't pace its enclosure existentially questioning what it's supposed to be doing with its life. But humans are different. Our wanting system never fully switches off. And here's what's fascinating. That's not a flaw. That's the whole point. In 2020, researchers at the University of Waterloo published a study examining what boredom actually produces when people follow it. Not when they suppress it. Not when they immediately reach for their phone. When they sit with the discomfort and let it run. What they found was striking. Boredom reliably preceded creative thought. Participants who were allowed to sit with boredom before a creativity task significantly outperformed those who had been kept entertained. The restless searching of a brain that couldn't find engagement was pushing the mind to generate its own stimulation, to imagine things that weren't there, which is, depending on how you look at it, the entire definition of human creativity. But that's only half the story, because if boredom drives creativity, that still doesn't explain why only humans experience it this way. Other animals can be creative. Crows use tools. Octopuses solve puzzles. Dolphins play games with no survival purpose whatsoever. So why aren't they bored? The answer has to do with something uniquely human. Something so natural that most people never think of it as a cognitive ability at all. You live in time. Not just the present. All of it. Past and future simultaneously. You remember things that happened years ago. You project yourself into scenarios that haven't happened and might never happen. Psychologists call this mental time travel. And it is, as far as we know, almost exclusively human. In 2001, Thomas Suddendorf and Michael Corballis, two researchers working independently in New Zealand and Australia, published a foundational paper arguing that this capacity for mental time travel is what separates human cognition from nearly every other species on the planet. You don't just respond to the world in front of you. You simulate worlds that don't exist yet, and that ability, extraordinary as it is, comes with a cost. A brain that can imagine the future can also notice when the present doesn't match it. When you're bored, your mind isn't empty. It's full. Full of other places you could be. other things you could be doing, other versions of this moment that would feel like something. The dog lying in the sun is in the sun. Fully. That's the whole thing. You are in the sun, but part of you is somewhere else, somewhere more interesting, somewhere that doesn't exist yet. And the gap between where you are and where your mind insists you could be is precisely what boredom feels like. Here's the part nobody talks about. Boredom has only existed as a named concept for roughly 150 years. The word itself entered English literature most prominently through Charles Dickens. The first known use of boredom in print appears in his 1852 novel, Bleak House. Before that, the concept existed, but it was described differently. As melancholy, as sloth, as the deadly sin of acedia, a spiritual listlessness that medieval monks considered one of the most dangerous states a person could fall into, because they understood something about it that we've mostly forgotten. Acedia wasn't simply having nothing to do. It was what happened when a mind capable of imagining transcendence found itself anchored to the ordinary. The monks weren't bored because their days were empty. They were bored because they could conceive of something greater than what was in front of them and couldn't reach it. That gap between what the human mind can imagine and what reality actually delivers is the engine of everything we have ever built. Every tool, every city, every piece of music that has made you feel something impossible to name. All of it began with a brain that wasn't satisfied with what was already there. In 2014, a study published in Science by Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia demonstrated something almost uncomfortable about the modern human relationship with boredom. Participants were placed alone in a room with nothing to do for 15 minutes. No phone, no book, no stimulation of any kind, just their own thoughts. 2/3 of men and 1/4 of women chose to administer mild electric shocks to themselves rather than sit in silence. They had been offered the chance to simply think, and they chose pain instead. Wilson's conclusion was that the unstructured human mind has become deeply aversive to itself, that we have grown so accustomed to external input that the natural state of a mind left alone, a state our ancestors inhabited for hours, every single day, sitting around fires, crossing open ground, waiting out weather, has become almost unbearable. We didn't evolve to be entertained. We evolved to seek, to build, to imagine forward. But now the seeking is outsourced. The building happens on someone else's platform, and the imagining is delivered to you in 10-second intervals by an algorithm that has studied exactly how long your attention holds before it slips. Boredom was supposed to be the pressure that pushed the human mind towards something new. The signal that said, what you're doing isn't enough. Go find something better. Go make something better. Go become something better. And now we've buried it. Think about the last time you were truly bored, with nothing to reach for, no screen within arm's length, no sound filling the gap. That feeling you were running from, the restlessness, the dissatisfaction, the low hum of wrongness, that wasn't your brain breaking down. That was the most human thing about you, trying to get your attention.